Life can sometimes feel like an endless nightmare that you just can't wake up from, like a time loop that just keeps repeating the same nightmare scenario over and over again. No matter how much you try to escape it, no matter how much you try to do the right thing, do whatever you're supposed to be doing to get out of it, to escape it, you just keep ending up going through the same thing over again, and it's a suffering. It is painful. You suffer, you stress, and you go through it over and over, and you accumulate more stress and more pain. And that is a real life scenario. That is something that happens to people all the time. It's happening to me. It's been happening to me for the last 10 years. But it's also something that has happened to the fictional character Homura Akemi from the masterful anime series Puella Magi Moroka Magica, created by Studio Shaft back in, I believe, 2010, and directed by Akiyuki Shinbo, who has a brilliant fucking visual sense of direction. Incredible looking show. It's absolutely gorgeous. Pastel colors everywhere, kaleidoscope like fucking art style. It's an amazing looking show. Soundtrack is great too. And it was also written by Urobuchi Gen, who would go on to write the first season of Psycho-Pass and Fate Zero, and he is awesome as well. One of the best writers in the anime industry. I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but great stuff, man, all around. It's a really good show, and if you haven't seen it already, you should go do that before I casually spoil it left and right. So there, you've been warned. Go watch the show. Now, Homura Akemi, who you will know is the most fascinating character from that show. She's the most layered and the most tortured. And she is also, of course, stuck in a time loop, a literal time loop, partly of her own making, but also partly the result of fate, and a really cruel fate that she is trapped in. But Cube and the rest of the incubator race or whatever have put Hamura and all of her friends in a cruel, cruel situation that they just can't escape from. And poor Hamura has to relive it over and over and over again. Now, there are other characters I can bring up that are stuck in fucked up time loops. Obviously, what's her name from Higurashi comes to mind, but that's neither here nor there, because I think Hamura, the reason I bring up Homura specifically, aside from the fact that Madoka is just a fucking incredible show and is one of my all-time favorite anime ever, I've watched it again recently, including the Rebellion movie, and I think now more than ever, going through what I've been going through lately in life, going through homelessness, going through toxic roommates, and uh, just being unable to find stable living and having to repeat that nightmare over and over again without ever getting my own space to live in because of finances and everything else. Uh, Having gone through my own suffering and nightmares for the last several goddamn years, that just seems to repeat endlessly, I feel more of a visceral connection with Hamura as a character than I think I ever have before. I always loved her as a character just because of how she's written and the complexity of her and her situation. Um, I always said for the longest time Sayaka was actually my favorite character, but I think that actually comes more down to her design. I really love the short cape and the sword, and uh, I don't know. I just think she's just a really cool looking character. I always liked her design a whole lot out of all the Madoka girls, but um, Hamura, more than ever, especially now, I feel a visceral connection to when it comes to how I relate to her and her situation, because it's it's been a while since I've rewatched it, and I was in a very different place the last time I've seen the show, the first time I've seen it especially. Uh, and although I always knew her situation was fucked up, I'm not one of those people that believes you have to like be in a character's shoes at some point to relate to feel for them, to feel their pain or whatever. That's just human nature. But like when you have been in that character's shoes and you have felt similar kinds of suffering or whatever, you get a much more visceral connection. You get a much more visceral relation to what they're going through. And I think my feelings about Homura as a character have strengthened a whole lot because of that. I think she might be one of my favorite written anime characters of all time, simply because her transformation, her arc from the series, from the beginning of her backstory when she's this shy, meek uh, classmate of the other girls, and it doesn't even have magical powers yet. And when we first meet her in that backstory, her older self, and we realize like how much this girl must have been through to change the way she did, and we see that change happen. We see just the warmth and spirit just drain from her completely, and she becomes this stoic, cold warrior that is just desperately trying to alter the fucked up fate she's been dealt. Like, that transformation alone, even just in the original season of the show, is powerful. You know what I mean? It's powerful more so if you have gone through that kind of baptism. And I have. You know, I've felt that myself. When you are in a situation that feels like it's endlessly looping and cycling, no matter how hard you try to change it, even though you think at the bottom of your heart you're doing the right thing to change your situation, it just keeps repeating. Uh, Being stuck in that kind of despair for a long time, it will change you. It will transform you. You will become more and more disillusioned, you know, because that's what happens to people that suffer for too long under the same duress, under the same despair. They become disillusioned. And what disillusionment does to you is it drains you of that spirit, that optimism. It drains you of that warmth, that, I guess you could say, innocence. It kind of drains all of that because you realize more and more how fucked and cruel the world can actually be. You realize more and more how cruel and fucked up life can actually be. And, you know, I'm somebody who has gone through that kind of bitterness, that growing bitterness and resentment to the world, realizing how cold and unhelpful a lot of the world can be when you're in a bad enough situation, you know, and you do get overlooked and you do get kind of, or rather, you don't get the help you need when you're in a bad situation for a long time, because ultimately that's the only thing that's able to save Hamura towards the end of the first season, is when her friend that she's been trying to save for so long, Monica, is actually like forced to intervene. She does decide, she finally gets an understanding of what Hamura's been going through and what's actually happening, and intervenes, you know, because at some point there's only one of two things that can happen when you suffer for long enough in the same situation and you can't escape it of your own will. You need help. You need an intervention. And unfortunately, that doesn't always come. And for Hamura, even when it does come at the end of the first season of the show, we get to the Rebellion movie, which completely upends the perfect ending of the original season of the show. Now, this movie was pretty divisive and controversial, to say the least. When I first saw the Rebellion Monica movie, I actually was pretty torn on the story and where it was going. I still loved it on I guess more on a surface level, just because the art direction and visuals were amazing. It is an incredible looking movie, and Shaft with a budget, anytime Studio Shaft gets a budget, their movies look amazing. So like, it is an incredible movie. It is worth watching regardless of whether or not you end up liking where it's going, or if you feel it shits on the ending of the original, the show itself. That's understandable, because part of me did feel that way about the Rebellion movie to a certain extent. When it came to the narrative, it did feel kind of unjustified and unnecessary when I first saw that movie. You know, the idea of Hamura finally, like, just giving up on trying to be a hero or trying to be the good guy, and just, she snaps completely and just gives into her own inner darkness and loneliness and bitterness and becomes this, like, witch queen. You know, this, basically the Satan to Monica's, you know, magical girl Jesus, whatever you want to call it. Um, It's pretty fucking trippy. It's pretty whacked out. And the first time I saw the movie, yeah, I was like, okay, that's bold. That's a bold fucking thing to do. It's memorable. It's entertaining because, damn, what a way to just like, what a way for this character to finally just give up and have this downfall. But looking at it again, especially after rewatching the movie recently, I feel like no, more than ever, I'm in this character's corner. I feel what she's going through. And after everything she went through in the season one of the original show, and then this movie, to have everything upended again by these fucking incubators, uh, it, like, I get it, man. I get it. I too would be like, fuck it all. Fuck justice. Fuck, like, trying to be the good guy. I'm giving into the darkness. I'm giving in to to that, despair I felt for so long, and I'm going to let it transform me. You know, I am going to be, more selfish than ever. She gives into that, and she kind of takes the reins from that cruel fate. She takes it away. She becomes the cruel fate rather than being under the cruel fate, so to speak. And it's really an empowering moment for her when you think about it. It's certainly presented as such, even if there is a tinge of tragedy to it. I can't say that I blame her because it's like, as somebody who is at the breaking point right now and, will be going to a shelter very soon because I'm so tired of living with toxic people. I have lived with somebody very toxic for the last couple of years, probably of all the roommates or people I've lived with in ages, might be the most toxic so far. So, like, I get it. I get being stuck in that kind of loop where you try and you try and you try, and you eventually just do the thing you were never supposed to do. You give in. You say, "Well, I tried to be the good guy. I tried to be the hero. Maybe the best thing to do is to take control of that darkness." You know what I mean? Instead of being in the dark for so long, become the dark. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's what Homura does. She takes the darkness in and she's like, I'm going to be the ultimate fucking witch queen or whatever. I'm going to be my own dark, freaking selfish god to overthrow Madoka's, divinity because I'm tired of this shit. I'm going to have the world exactly the way I want it. I don't care what the consequences are. And yeah, I feel like that's how a lot of villains are born. Hamura becomes this ultimate villain by the end of the Rebellion movie, but it's like, that's how a lot of villains come to be. It's like you just reach a fucking breaking point, bro. I get it. I get it. And it's funny that, like, I guess I never really thought about it this way until recently, that Hamura might be one of the best, like, villain transformations I've ever seen in an anime character or any work of fiction. Honestly, it's pretty powerful because, like, we see her in her backstory, where she came from originally, what kind of character she was emotionally, how she went from that, this shy kid, to this stoic, kind of cold warrior who buries all of her feelings to keep, to keep getting by, to keep pushing through in the original season. And then finally in the Rebellion movie, just gives up completely on trying to hold anything back. She just gives in to that darkness. And instead of, a gun, she turns that darkness into an identity, rather than a weapon to wield like she did in the first season. And I'm there for her, man. I root for her now. I don't know what the next Monica movie is going to be like. I know there's another one coming that's been delayed a couple of times. I hope it comes out eventually because it looks phenomenal. But I have no idea where the story's going to go from here. I mean, I guess there's going to have to be some kind of resolution where the other girls take her down. I'm not even sure, like, what kind of time and space or timeline the Monica story is kind of in at this point after the events of the Rebellion movie. But again, it's pretty heady. It's pretty trippy how, like, crazy things get by the end of that movie. But I am excited for more of it simply because, aside from just being a great looking work of art, Madoka, including the Rebellion movie, has always just been an extremely well-written work of art, you know? And I know this simply because in my own life situations and as things have changed for me, and unfortunately at the moment just progressively getting worse, um, it's art like this that you can look to and, it may not solve your problems, but at the very least, you look at art like this, you look at stories like this, characters like this, and they help you understand not only yourself a little better, but the world in general. It just creates more room for introspection. And yeah, Homura is just a great character. She's a real one, all right? And the struggle she goes through is real. And I'm right there with her. I don't have many real people in my corner that I can, feel this kind of connection with, who are in this situation that I'm in. So thank goodness for anime and thank goodness for Homura Akemi. Fictional or not, fictional story, fictional character, sure, but that's what art is all about. It's real. It's all real. Life is real, and so is the art that imitates it. So, what do you guys think about all that? How do you feel about Madoka Magica, the series, the movies? Where do you think the next one will go? Let me know in the comments how you feel about all that, and if there are any characters in the series or in anime in general that you feel this kind of visceral connection to that maybe you always didn't always and came to that at some point. You know what I mean? Was there anything in your life that brought you to seeing a character more closely than ever? You know, let me know. And until then, no matter what you're going through or not going through, or whether you're embracing your inner darkness or inner light, you get to burning and live for the passion